Is London's biggest conversation with Andrew Gilligan.
12 minutes to 9, Andrew Gilligan here until 10 for Indale. And we're asking, are the police out of control? Is Boris Johnson that big a deal? Two interesting questions which are getting a lot of interest from the texts and the calls in particular. Let's talk to you in Croydon.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you? What do you think about the police? Are they out of control? Do you think that the IPCC in particular is doing a good job?
I've got a close interest in all of this because my brother is a serving Met Police officer. He's been in for 8 years.
Right.
He gave up working in the city to go into the force. And for the first 3-4 years, he had an exceptionally hard time within the force itself. And I've just gave your colleague one of the links. He took them to an ET. And what he found out was they actually hid the arrest of the second most senior respondent during the ET to allow his evidence to go through.
An employment tribunal?
Yep.
Yeah.
They hid the arrest. It was all over the papers nationwide. We only found out when we looked at the date in the Sun. And we said, we recognise that date. So we contacted Kent Police and they confirmed that he was arrested.
So I'm a bit confused here. Who was arrested?
The senior police officer, ex-chief inspector from the Met.
The man who your brother was in grievance with?
That's right. He was the second most senior respondent. And what we also found out was 2 months after he was dismissed, he was doing police consultancy work. And we contacted the IPCC throughout all of this because there were lots of comments he'd made. He was, basically allowed to go on under the stand saying how he had high standards, how he questioned our brother's suitability as a police officer, and there's this guy doing what he was doing. And your member of staff who I gave the link to, it's actually quite disturbing as to why he was actually arrested and dismissed.
Yeah.
It was all over the Sun.
Yeah.
And I think there was a nationwide revulsion against this guy. If you look at comments in the Sun, what they said.
All right. No names, though, please.
No, of course not.
We don't want to get into legal
he was an
problems here.
ex-chief inspector, but it's all over the national media. And anyway, we contacted the IPCC. They proved utterly useless. What they did was they passed it back to the same station that this inspector was based out of, and also his detectives.
And this man's been re-employed, is that right, in the police?
He was paid to do national police consultancy work 2 months after he was dismissed. We found this out. We contacted the heads of the police. We went to Stephen Greenhouse, the Deputy Mayor of Policing. He passed it back to the Commissioner. They've totally ignored it. We've asked them so many times, why was this arrest hidden? They don't give you an answer. They've admitted this year that they use ignore tactics, and that was in Brixton.
Yeah. I mean, this case, Arhad, has interesting echoes of the famous case of Ian Tomlinson, G20.
Well, that's the thing. I did write to the Deputy Assistant Commissioner based on that. They choose not to reply.
Yeah.
And it's pretty common because there's no level of accountability. Now, the thing is, most rank-and-file police officers, they're absolutely appalled. And people think, oh, it's an anti-police exercise. It's not. Most police officers do sterling work, but it's the organisation that's nearly rotten. There's no sort of accountability, especially when you go to the upper ranks and you start getting protected. You are virtually untouchable.
All right, Arhad, let me read you a couple of the texts, and let me read listeners a couple of the texts we've been having.
I'll just send you a Twitter link, by the way, as well. You can have a look at it.
I've got a text here from Battersea, who's a police cadet. Good news doesn't sell, she says. As a police cadet, I know a lot about the police from the inside. The media ignore all the day-to-day good that the police does and create a moral panic over these one-off incidences.
I don't dispute that at all. The best thing my brother did was join the Met. And the best thing he's done is stay in the Met because he's worked with phenomenally good officers. And officers came to give evidence, against these other respondents. But the thing is, they will hide critical evidence. They will doctor transcripts, blame it on typists. They will do all sorts of things. And when you go to the IPCC, they will send it back to people. It takes somebody to actually die before the IPCC or the media gets involved before the IPCC do anything.
Yeah. Now, that's a quite interesting point, because, as I said to you, Arhad, it does echo the case of Ian Tomlinson, the newspaper vendor, of course, who was pushed to the ground by a police officer at the G20 demonstrations in, I think, 2009, was it, causing his death. We learned that particular officer had, in fact, a disciplinary record as long as your arm for alleged abuse of suspects,
but they'll come out
forced to resign for falsifying evidence.
That's right, but they'll come in and they'll come back in through the back door.
That's right, and literally within days of having to resign from the Met for falsifying evidence to justify a false arrest, he was then re-employed by another force, and then from that rejoined the Met. That's right. He rejoined at Surrey as a civilian, I think, and then got
he went back
a police job and back into uniform, and then a really sensitive job. And it is bizarre, isn't it? And that's the kind of thing I think that kind of, damages faith in the police.
It is. I mean, we've gone to Stephen Greenhill, and he passed it back to the Commissioner, and the Commissioner's done absolutely nothing. Put it this way. My brother was interviewed by the professional standards, i.e. the cops.
Yeah.
They doctored his transcript. They took out compelling evidence, aggressive conduct by these officers, and they refused to tell us who did it.
Yeah.
When the officer came on the stand, he said the typist arbitrarily removed all this evidence and they could do what they want.
So
and every other force we contacted said, no, that's totally impossible.
So your answer to our question is really the police are out of control, you think?
The police hierarchy have no accountability, and the thing is, it's the damning indictment on them, because the rank-and-file officers are brilliant.
All right, thank you very much. In Croydon, whose brother is still in the police and who believes that rank-and-file officers are brilliant. An interesting story from the inside there of the Metropolitan Police. What do you think? 0845 60 60 973. Let's take you through some more of those texts. The police are definitely out of control from top to bottom. They do what they want unchallenged, believing their victims are not going to challenge them. Those who back them haven't experienced their nastiness. My advice is to take them to court, says one texter. From Boreham Wood, another text says, the police are above the law. How many times have the police come up for misconduct, but the officers retire to collect their pensions and stop any investigations? The IPCC is a joke and a waste of taxpayers' money. That's from Boreham Wood. The problem is not resources, says another texter. It's the fact that the police are trained to lie. Pretty strong allegation there on the text, and are not accountable. The CPS is also the Crown Prosecution Service, of course, is also the Criminal Protection Services, says our texter. I can and will prove it. Well, an interesting text there. Some interesting and strong feelings about the police. Some interesting and strong feelings about Boris Johnson as well.